In this presentation, we will talk about Hadoop administration. The agenda for this presentation is displayed in the following slide. First, we will talk about how to add and remove nodes from a cluster. We will talk about how to verify cluster health, how to stop and start components and services, how to configure Hadoop, and how to set up RAG topology. Let's start with the first item in the agenda on how to add or remove nodes from the Hadoop cluster. So there may be situations where you want to remove a node from a cluster when, for example, you want to apply maintenance maybe to the OS of that particular node. So you first may have to bring the node down, and these may require you to remove it from the Hadoop cluster. In terms of adding a node, you probably want to add a node when you want to increase the power or the number of resources available to you on the cluster. So if you want to add a node, you could do it from the web console or from the terminal. If you do it from either of them, you first need to verify that you can connect or you can reach the node that you want to add. So a simple way to do that is simply to SSH to that node that you want to add. So in this example, we have here that we're SSH to this IP address that represents the IP address of the node that we want to add. Now, when you want to add a node, and this is a slave node, the big insights or the Hadoop software should not be installed on that node. What you do need to do is you need to update the file /etc/host with the IP address and host name of the master and the slave nodes. So you have to do this on each of the machines, so on the master and the slave node that you want to add, and it should contain the master's IP address and host name, as well as the slave node's IP address and host names. And this has to be done prior to adding the slave nodes. Now, when you add a node, Hadoop will not automatically rebalance the data. The data will be as it is. However, when you start using the cluster, probably most blocks will start to be allocated on the new node in the cluster. Now, if you want to force rebalancing so that the data is sort of balanced across a cluster, there is a command that you can use, which is /bin /start-balancer.sh, and you should probably run that command at night because it does consume network resources. So it's a good idea to run it when there's not much traffic or much usage of the cluster. And if for any reason you see that is interfering with the performance of the cluster, you can stop it using the /bin /stop-balancer.sh command. So let's continue explaining a little bit more about how to add and remove a node. So to add a node, you can go to the BeginSite web console, and there is an option in there or a button there that you can click to add a node, and on the right side you can see there's another one to remove nodes. So in this particular example, we can first choose to add a node. When you click on that, it will open a window where you can specify the IP address of the host, number of nodes, the root password, and you can click on add, and there you can specify the IP address of the new node that you want to add, and then you can click on save. And once you have done that, basically the node will be added to your cluster. So that it was very easy to do using the BeginSite web console. You can also use commands. So you can open the terminal, you can change directories to the Beginsites home/bin, and then you can execute the /@node.sh command with a Hadoop component and then the IP address of the slave node you want to add and the password. And then in this example, this is the message that we get. And in the case of removing, you can remove it from the web console by going back to that. If I go back quickly, by choosing remove nodes in this case, and then you will get screens to probably choose the slave node that you want to remove. And if you were to do it using a command, you can use that /remove node.sh and specify the IP address. At the end of that, you can verify which nodes you have in your cluster by running the listnode.sh command. Now, for removing a node, this may mean as well that potentially you could, if you have a replication factor set up for your cluster, if you're removing a node, then potentially some of these files that are restored would be below the replication factor that you had set. So if you had a replication factor of 3, and then by removing this node, one of the files now has 2 replicas, then the situation that will happen is if you try to execute this remove node.sh command, it will not allow you to do it unless you use the -f flag, which means that you are forcing the removal of that particular node, even though you will be below the replication factor. And you can basically think of these remove node.sh-f, so for forcing, as the same scenario when the node just crashes by itself. So if there is a hardware problem in that particular node and it crashes, then it's basically like forcibly removing a node from the cluster. So what Hadoop will do, or HDFS will do in those cases, is it will realize that there is a node that has gone down or that you forcibly removed, and then it will automatically try and start a replication or create a replica in some other active node.